Welcome to the Money Huddle, a podcast that explores financial topics for families and small business owners. Hosted by Michael Baker and Ross Marinell. All opinions expressed by Michael and Ross or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and may not reflect the opinions of Planners Alliance. The podcast recording is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Planners Alliance may maintain positions in securities discussed on the program.
Welcome back to the Money Huddle. My name is Michael Baker, and I'm here with my buddy, my business partner, Ross Marinell. Ross, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful today, man. It's good to be here. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a little hiatus. We've, been a little bit under the weather, had some travel, so we've had to miss a couple weeks.
Hey, kids get back to school, man. It's a busy time of the year, but we're back and ready to roll.
Back in the saddle. So I know we got a lot that we'd like to cover today, so let's get going. Dive in.
So we talked about WeWork a couple of podcast episodes ago.
We've mentioned them a few times. Yeah.
WeWork got worked.
They've had an interesting run here the last couple of weeks, to say the least.
We took a few shots at their regulatory disclosure through the SEC, highlighted a few warning signs that we thought were troubling, and it just came out that they've temporarily, I guess, kind of put their IPO plans on hiatus. They've had a CEO change, so Adam Newman is no longer CEO of
Super
WeWork.
Necessary.
Hey, you know what? But he has time to release his superpowers. Oh. If you saw that interview that he did a few weeks ago, that was remarkable.
Well, first of all, I would never in my day-to-day watch something like that because, of course, it just doesn't interest me that much. But then, because of all the stuff that's been happening, I was like, well, let me go and see, what kind of person we're dealing with. And I full confession, I got through about 90 seconds of him talking, and I turned it off.
I made it all the way. So it was Adam Newman and Ashton Kutcher and the CNBC. I think it was aired on CNBC. Anyway, it was like 16, 17 minutes. I watched the whole thing. It was mind-boggling. And, so I think the reality here is that the market was retail investors were not ready to step in.
Well, here's an interesting thought I had about this scenario, and what made me think about it was yesterday I saw Josh Brown. He posted a video on his Twitter feed. His Twitter handle is @ReformedBroker, and Josh, he's a colorful character. He's got some interesting takes on a lot of different things. Pretty much a lifer, I think, in this business. But he talked about the fact that these banks were underwriting this and were getting ready to push out. They were going to put this IPO out at a $50 billion valuation, when now that everyone's peeling back the layers of the onion, they're like, this thing may not even...
It may not even pull 10 billion.
It may not even.
His take was perfect. He said they were this close
and
to dumping
he
this.
dropped names of these banks. But what he said, it got me thinking, because, one of the things that historically now people will refer to as like the IPOs of the .com era, where internet's coming of age and you got all these companies, none of them are profitable, and they're coming to business. And I'm thinking to myself as this is exactly what should instill confidence in people. It's so WeWork they're going to IPO. They push out their S1 and
a firestorm ensued.
And social media, people started reading it, and everyone started talking. They're like, wait a minute, this is not what we thought was happening. And that transparency, but also combined with the platforms that think about how many people have platforms now that would have never had a platform 10, 15 years ago, before Twitter, before Facebook, Instagram, before being able to do live videos, podcasts, that got out there and read this thing. They said, pump the brakes.
We talked about narrative leading, right? Truth over facts.
Absolutely.
Right? The narrative, the story that we're telling is ahead of the facts. And so it's nice when the people can kind of pull together and let the facts take over, and they turn that narrative around, and it's incredible.
Beat them back well, I think too. You get after we get Lyft, after we get Uber, people are starting to look like, wait a minute, this doesn't smell too good coming out of the kitchen, and then here comes WeWork. I think that they're a victim of that their business model is deeply flawed, and they got to figure some things out. But B, they're also a victim of they weren't first, because some of these companies got out.
I pulled some data on some of the companies that just released here recently.
Right.
This isn't. I'm going to rattle these off kind of quick, but I think it's important. So, Slack, which trades under the ticker WORK, 52-week high of 42, currently trading around 22. Uber, 52-week high of 47, currently trading just under $32 a share.
Oh, wow.
Listen to this. Remember Chewy, the little dog food?
Yeah, like you could subscribe and get your dog food like mailed to your house.
52-week high of 41.34, currently trading around 27 a share. Now here we go. This is where it gets juicy. Lyft, 52-week high just over $88 a share.
What was the high?
$88.60. Currently trading right around $41 a share.
Oh man.
Fiverr, 52-week high, $44.25, trading around $18 a share. Oh. So, we talk all the time. We hear with this story's kind of been building in the financial news media. When's the next recession coming? It's been 10 years. It's just cyclical. It's this, it's like a clock, right? That's just running. And every 10 years we have a recession. It doesn't work that way, right? There's constantly stocks falling.
Oh,
and
no question.
I just rattled off about 8 kind of recently listed companies that came to the market that have seen the market take hold of their narrative.
It shows the real danger of stock picking, in my view. I mean, you have even we were talking a few moments ago just about a company, GE, which GE is been around for ages.
Sort of the old school darling of the blue chips, right? Dividend paying,
right?
Kind of.
And I mean, and it's in 2017, I think it was up around $30 a share, and is now trading around $9 a share. I mean, this is a company that's been owned by institutional asset managers, right? For a long, long time, and and that's the thing is one of the things we talk about when we are trying to help people coach people about investing and understand that stock picking is sexy, and there's no question that it is, because man, everyone can point to those stories like, man, if I'd have just bought Amazon or if I'd have just bought Apple, but it is so hard to identify those types of companies coming out of the gate.
Which one's going to pop? Which one's going to fall flat? I mean, look, I just listed off Slack, Uber, Chewy, Lyft, Fiverr. WeWork can't get out of the gate.
Right.
Now we're talking Peloton might not be able to get out of the gate or might be
I think
delayed.
they're the same problem. I mean, this Peloton at its core, they sell very expensive exercise equipment, and what they want to be is the fitness technology subscription company.
We deliver happiness. No, you sell fitness equipment. And
you sell $3,000 bikes. Right. And it's like, I mean, hey, I'm sure there's a market for that, but is that a publicly traded company?
Right.
I don't know.
It seems to me some of this narrative has been turned around, and the result is, like we said a couple podcasts ago, right? The market comes at you fast. Like reality sets in quickly, and it has. And this idea, kind of circling back to this main idea of, is there this, there's this recession storm brewing, and people are, and there, we can't predict if there's a system-wide drawdown, right? Where a systematic drawdown, meaning everything kind of just falls down, in lockstep. That's its potential, but believe me, there are stocks suffering drawdowns all the time.
No question.
One other thing I wanted to bring up today, I saw an interesting post on Twitter, and it was just sort of
the Twitterverse.
Yeah. I can't help myself. But it was a great kind of idea. It said, this was from Josh Wolf.
Okay.
He said, while interest rates are at tremendous lows, so he's talking about U.S. interest rates, think treasuries, pushing south of 2%. We're in that kind of 1.7, 1.8 range.
Yeah, I saw a headline yesterday that said, that treasury spiked, and I was like, well, what happened? I went and looked, and it was still like 1.6 or something. I was like, wait a minute, never mind.
He had a great take.
Go on about your business.
While interest rates are at tremendous lows, average credit card interest rate is still at a record 17%, with $850 billion in the U.S. outstanding.
It's tremendous.
And so I went to a couple of sites and just checked around. I was like, is that right? Is that true?
That interest rate?
So I was looking at different card types, and I just went to a site called valuepenguin.com. And look at this, cashback credit cards. The average overall rate was like 20.9%. Hotel cards average around 16.12.
Do they give data on people carrying balances on those cards?
So
Or
there's
just
all
what the
kinds of
average rates
breakdowns
are?
here. But listen, this one, student credit cards, overall interest rate. So there's a range of 13.99 to 22.62 with the overall average around 19.8. That is troubling.
Loan shark rates.
So remember, we're at historic low interest rates. You could potentially get a 30-year home mortgage loan for around 4%.
Yeah.
Depending on the credit card interest rate is still solid double-digit cost.
Well, this is one of the things one of the things that I'm doing for disclosure to our listeners, one of the things I'm doing right now is I am working on a cash out refi of my primary mortgage because we live in an area of the country where property values just have continued to rise. There's a lot of economic development, a lot of growth where we are. Property values are going up. And so I want to use some of the equity in my home to actually reinvest into the home and do some home projects that I think obviously we will get to enjoy while we live there, but will also very likely increase the value or the resale value of my property. So I'm looking at that, and I will have to tell you, I can't think of a process that is more clunky than these trying to get a mortgage. Oh my heavens. These folks want everything, and they want it again, and then it's only good for a certain period of time. But the point is one of the things that I've been talking to them about. I was like, guys, like, what is going on? And they're like, we are being bombarded right now with people that are trying to refinance and do things. And so, this is definitely not my advice for you to go do this. It's my advice for you to talk to someone about this potential. But if you're carrying credit card balances right now and you're done with the credit card, you just can't get it paid off. You're just but you're done with credit card debt and you've got equity in your home, now could be a time for you to look to do like use some of that equity to get yourself out from underneath these credit cards, and go into, you're going to pay mortgage and you might pay mortgage at 4.5 or 4.75, but that beats the brakes off of paying 19% to carry a balance on a revolving credit line.
Something I just wanted to chime in there real quick. That's just standard if you make your payments on time. If you skip a beat, you miss a payment, the average credit card penalty rate.
Do they mail you the ankle bracelet to your?
They might as well. I mean, just chain me.
We want to know where you are.
I don't even want to leave the house. If I have to pay, they're around 29%.
Yeah, it's criminal. It is criminal.
Penalty rate. So you miss a payment and then boom, it's just to the moon. So I agree with you. Before we can be investors, because we get this question quite a bit.
Right.
When we're looking at, especially younger investors that are starting off, that are kind of in that season where they're paying attention to the markets. They know they need to invest, and when we do that breakdown and we see credit card debt, there is no better financial strategy really than starting with that debt reduction and getting away, because that's 16, 17, 18% eating away.
Sure.
Year over year.
There's been plenty of times over the years where we're doing intake with a new potential client, and we're going through assets and liabilities or cash flow, and we find they're carrying credit cards, and they've got, here's one that's 12.9, here's one that's 15, here's one that's 16, and it's like, stop, like, do not pass go. Like, you can't expect, to go find an investment that's immediately going to turn around and give you that type of return. And if you pay off that debt, you might, that money that was burning a hole in your pocket that you were thinking you might want to invest, it doesn't feel as exciting to go pay off your credit card. But basically, all we're doing is we're just paying for the money you've already spent. I mean, you've already spent it. Let's go pay that off. Let's not carry that interest rate, and then we can start fresh. And now we can start building a real long-term sustainable investment plan, because the likelihood is if you're carrying high interest rate credit card debt, you probably have had to dip into that, maybe because you didn't have an adequate emergency fund or some other, you haven't been able to get it paid off. But if you can get it paid off, then you can start really doing some good work, I think.
I agree. As far as I'm concerned, credit card debt is just pure evil in financial planning. So pay down debt first, then invest. once you have a little bit of a cash buffer that can kind of get you through some of those short-term fluctuations. All right, what else you got for us, Michael?
So I was talking with some people the other day, and I shared with them a couple of quotes from some reading that I've done recently, and one was from Mainstay Morgan Housel, and Morgan Housel posted a blog, and one is the laws of investing, and some of it was, it was all good, but there was one thing that I thought was really great, and he put law number 6, and he says the biggest risk is always whatever no one is talking about, because if no one's talking about it, they're not prepared for it. And it kind of goes into what you were sharing a little earlier about, everyone wants to talk about, there's recession, there's recession, there's recession. And I'm like, well, if everyone keeps talking about recession, people are psychologically going to begin to prepare.
Or we're all talking ourselves into it.
Or we're going to talk ourselves into it, or trying to psychologically, prepare ourselves for it. But then it's like, well, what about these black swan events? That no one can see coming, or, taking it down into like the micro of your personal life. You're worried about recession, but yet you don't have, adequate homeowners insurance or adequate, life insurance or something unexpected, unplanned happens.
A lot of times the things that derail a retirement plan are the unexpected things, like if someone loses a job.
Exactly.
Or we lose a job 3 years before we want to retire.
We're worried about what's going to happen with the market, but yet there's some boxes that haven't been checked.
Retirements or loss of a spouse or a family member is just devastating, and sometimes those, or even just a health event, like you're entering long-term care, and it's just like we weren't as prepared for that as maybe we should have been, or bracing ourselves for the cost of what that can be. I agree. One last thing I wanted to chat about today. Saw a great post from Dan Egan with Betterment.
Yeah, I saw it too. It was awesome.
So one of the things he chimed in on was there was a little thread going through with Noah Smith, and Dan commented. He said, 2 things that should be decoupled from employment: health insurance and retirement accounts. And this really sprung out of a conversation about the lack of startups and the decline in employees kind of breaking away from big companies to start their own businesses, their own companies, because the challenge of finding adequate health insurance coverage. If you're in with a large corporation or a government where you're seeing a lower health insurance cost for you, especially if you're the individual in your family that's covering your spouse and your children, how hard is it to break away from that to form a business, even if you have a strong desire to do something different or on your own, because you're going to lose some of those benefits.
Yeah.
If you lose the ability to, we've talked before, a 401k contribution is significantly more per year than an IRA contribution.
Correct.
Why? Why can't we just even that out? So if I am self-employed and I want to start a business, I can make the same type of contribution that somebody who works for an employer that has a 401k plan.
Just a regular company that has a 401k plan.
And the challenge is what they're finding is that the startup growth, it's declining, right? And so there was a great chart said American dynamism is in retreat. So startups as a share of all businesses. Back in 1979, startups as a percentage of all businesses was just under 14%. Today, we're hovering around 8%.
Yeah.
So a really sharp decline in people taking that leap. And I think part of that is because of those 2 items, don't you think?
What was the first year you said again?
1979. So kind of right. I hit the 80s.
I have a few thoughts. Like number one is, and I may be completely wrong on this, but I'd be interested to see data to see what type, if we don't get more startups out of a recession where companies are shedding jobs and people are like, they kind of get forced out. So now they're like, well, you know what? It's now or never. I'm going to go and I'm going to try my hand at, starting my own business, versus when economic times are good, people are comfortable. They might want to start that job, but man, there's a lot of risk because, I got a good job. They pay me well. I got benefits, all these things. And versus if, hey, economy contracts and we lose jobs, now you got to go make it happen. Some of those people aren't going back, and they're not going to surrender their autonomy again to a corporation that can fire them at will. So that's my first thought. But I agree 100% with this sentiment, because to me, I look at it like this. If health insurance, for one, kind of came into the workplace decades ago, when there were wage controls on companies, and so companies needed to find a way. I mean, we're talking like World War II era, where there were wage controls. Companies needed to find a way to lure employees or people to come in and be part of what they were doing, and they couldn't offer more money, right? So they said, you know what, we'll pay for your health insurance, or we'll provide health care. And, that kind of has morphed into like these companies now carrying an ever growing burden. Now we're doing, they were doing pensions and health insurance. Now it's 401k and health insurance. And my thought is, why can't we, with the technology that's available, have these entities that basically, work like third-party administrators, TPAs, where the companies just decide, here's how many dollars we're going to allocate to you for benefits as an employee. The companies still get the same tax deduction, but the employees then can decide, okay, I value having health care of a certain level more than I value, this going to auto retirement, because I've got young babies, and if they sneeze, we're going to go to the doctor, right? Or here's another one, student loans. Hey, I value getting my student loans paid off more than I value having like a $200 deductible on my health insurance plan because I'm healthy. I think and
let people, and if there's a marketplace where people can actually go out, shop for health insurance, shop for life insurance, disability, think about the employer benefits that are often packaged through some of the large corporations, right? It's not just health insurance, it's other insurances like disability, life insurance. It could be an HSA account, so some kind of health savings account. And then the retirement planning. So if there's a 401k or some other similar type plan, it's all connected. And basically it pins employees in, and it connects them to that system, because if they leave, they got to go replace all of those very, very important financial products on their own.
Right.
And it's becoming a more challenging environment to do that.
But
go and actually see the full cost of a health insurance plan when you're in your 40s and cover a family. It can be a jaw-dropping experience. And so it's really preventing people from starting businesses, from doing some of the creative things that maybe they want to do, and at least leaving that prior job.
I see it. I see that point, and I see it also a little bit differently, because, my belief is not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs, not everybody's meant to do that. There are some people that need to have that work-life structure, and there's nothing wrong with it, no matter how you slice it. But I think what this ultimately would do is create more flexibility, because people that have that entrepreneurial spirit, they wouldn't necessarily be chained to a company. It would give them some freedom. But the other thing, and where I think probably a large root of a big issue is people that work, they change jobs so frequently that a lot of their 401k balances don't grow that much, their HSA and people are tempted to just cash out instead of like, oh, I've only got $3,000 in there, well, I'll just cash it out and I'll pay the taxes and penalties.
You bring up a good point, which is, in the event that you work for one of these corporations that has robust employer benefits, please review those and take advantage of them.
Yes.
Because that is actually part of the benefit of being in some of those institutions, is that you do have a 401k match. You do have quality or reduced costs from some of the employer benefits like life insurance or disability. So do not bypass those automatically. Really pay attention to them, because that's part of the benefit of being in some of those
100%. But I think that opening up, to me, like, if you're a business owner, so think about these big companies. Like one of the most expensive things is just your cost per employee, because you're providing benefits, and those costs, sometimes they scale, but they typically inflate. But if you get a company that says, okay, well, we're going to allocate X dollars per year. Now we may offer an inflation adjustment to that, but now you have something that is scalable, and then you give control to the employees on how they want to use those dollars. So your younger people could say, no, we're going to sock down these student loans. Your people that have families, they're like, you know what, we're going to try to balance healthcare and retirement, because we kind of got other things licked. And then your older folks that maybe not have saved as well for retirement, they're like, look, I'm on the high deductible health plan, and I'm socking as much money away for retirement as I possibly can. I love the ability for, to give. Now, here's the flip side. We all know people can't be trusted. Right. So you need to have people that are willing, that are going to give people guidance, right? Because obviously, there's a huge opportunity there for this to be beneficial, but it's also a tremendous amount for people to just go off the rails.
So I'm all for letting individuals make those decisions and getting hopefully good guidance, but it's something certainly we're not going to be able to answer today, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's great.
It's not easy to run a business. It's not easy to be profitable and compete and hire and train, attract, train, and retain employees. Yeah. And then you stack on the additional issues of having to then become their retirement planner, their health care provider, their life insurance provider. It adds a whole nother weight of issues to those business owners that are just trying to run a profitable business.
Think about the ability, just in our space, the retirement space, where you have somebody that says, look, I have this IRA account, right? Because it probably wouldn't be 401k, but I have this IRA account or this retirement account that my company's going to put in X dollars and I'm putting in X dollars, but I can go have that managed anywhere. I could go to any custodian I want to, and I can, self-direct, or I can have somebody help me with an advisory, from an advisory.
Right.
I love it.
Hey, listen, all we need now is Congress to let you and I help influence the Secure Act. We'll throw a few passages in there. We'll rewrite it.
Rewrite the whole thing.
Well, hey, I know we covered a lot of topics today. It's glad to be back in the swing of things with you, buddy.
Yeah, no question. One of the things, and I'll leave with this. This was a great passage that I read from another book. It's called Atomic Habits from James Clear. And he says, James Clear writes, he goes, most people need consistency more than they need intensity. So the other day I saw a post from a friend of mine online, and he talked about, he hadn't been exercising for a while, and he's decided he was going to hop on the treadmill, and he was going to run for 3 miles, and it was 3 miles, make it or break it, and he couldn't do it. Right? He got about a mile and a half in, and he tapped out. And I feel like a lot of folks, we go through these seasons where we get pumped up, I'm going to take the bull by the horns, and I'm going to get my finances in order, I'm going to get my health in order, and we start out trying to bite off way more than we can chew. And then we quit, and then we're discouraged again. And so what he says is we need consistency more than intensity. So an example of intensity, run a marathon. An example of consistency, don't miss a workout for 2 years. Example of intensity, write a book in 30 days. An example of consistency, journal every week. So I thought that's just a great idea. It says intensity makes a good story, but consistency makes progress. So for our listeners, folks that are trying to do better with their money, families that are trying to do better with their money, we always encourage you to get together with a qualified financial planner. Do a financial plan, but remember, consistency is the key. It's not about what tremendous big moves you're going to make today that's going to solve all your problems. It's about getting on the right trajectory and then slowly but surely staying consistent over time. So as always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook. Let us know if there's any questions you want to have us talk about on the show. You can email us at themoneyhuddle@vcplanning.com. Again, that email is themoneyhuddle@vcplanning.com. And as always, we'll talk to you next time.